Somebody died in this room in the last 72 hours.
Aw, man, we just missed it.
Oh, it'll happen again, son.
The Simpsons are famous for their predictions of the future. They've been making some pretty accurate predictions over the years, and most of them have actually come true. So join me as I reveal to you 15 more times The Simpsons predicted the future. Number 15. The Three-Eyed Fish. In an episode from 1990, Bart caught a three-eyed fish and named it Blinky. This happened in episode 4 of season 2 on the show and caught people's attention immediately because of how unusual the fish looked. It was also interesting that Bart had caught the fish in a river near a power plant, which also made local headlines. More than 10 years later, a three-eyed fish was actually caught in a reservoir in Argentina. You might not believe this, but the reservoir itself was fed by water from a nuclear power plant. So, it's exactly how it happened in the show. Number 14. Siegfried and Roy tiger attack. In episode 10 of season 5 on the show, The Simpsons parodied entertainers Siegfried and Roy in a 1993 episode that was called Springfield, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love Legalized Gambling. During the episode, the magicians are viciously mauled by a trained white tiger while they perform at a casino. You might not believe this, but this prediction actually came true in 2003 when the magicians were attacked during a live performance by Montecore, one of their white tigers. Roy Horn was attacked and he was seriously injured, but managed to survive the attack. Number 13. The censorship of Michelangelos David. Episode 9 from season 2 of the show was released in 1990 and was titled Itchy and Scratchy and Marge. The episode showed Springfieldians protesting against Michelangelo's statue of David being exhibited in the local museum because they thought the artwork was too obscene to be displayed in public like that. This actually came true in July 2016, when Russian campaigners voted on whether to clothe the copy of the statue that had been set up in central St. Petersburg.
A big naked friend over there, and be against another form like, Itchy and Scratchy.
Number 12. Horse meat scandal. In episode 19 of season 5, lunch lady Doris used assorted horse parts to make lunch for kids at school. 9 years later, the Food Safety Authority of Ireland found horse DNA in over 1/3 of beef burger samples from supermarkets and ready meals, which meant that people were really being served horse meat in disguise. Number 11. Autocorrect. Did you know that The Simpsons also predicted the existence of autocorrect in the future? And also how much it would irritate us. In episode 8 of season 6, school bullies Kearney and Dolph take a memo to beat up Martin on a Newton device. The memo gets quickly translated to eat up Martha. This looks like an early foreshadowing of how autocorrect would frustrate people in the future. Nitin Ganatra, a former director of engineering iOS applications at Apple, stated that this episode served as inspiration for the company to get their iPhone keyboard right. Number 10. The Beatles letter.
P.S. Forgive the lateness of my reply.
In episode 18 of season 2 that was aired in 1991, the Beatles' Ringo Starr was answering fan mail that had been written to them decades ago. This situation actually came about in September 2013, when 2 Beatles fans from Essex received a reply from Paul McCartney to a letter and recording they sent to the band almost 50 years ago. The recording was sent to a London theater the band was due to play at, but was misplaced and found later in a car boot sale by a historian. Number 9. Smartwatches. In episode 19 of season 6, the show introduced the idea of a watch that would be doubled as a phone in an episode aired in 1995. This was nearly 20 years before the first Apple Watch was officially released. I wonder how the writers of the show knew an invention like that would be released in the future, because they made some really precise predictions. It could be possible that Apple modeled their smartwatches on the idea presented by The Simpsons, but that seems a little unlikely. Number 8. The Shard. The Lisa's Wedding episode from 1995 did come with a load of future predictions. In the episode, Lisa takes a trip to London, and we get to see a skyscraper behind Tower Bridge that looks eerily similar to the Shard. It's even in the same location as the building, but the Shard was built approximately 14 years later in 2009. So the writers knew that a building would be built in that exact location more than a decade later. Number 7. 2014 Ebola Outbreak. In episode 3 of season 9, The Simpsons actually managed to predict the Ebola outbreak that happened in 2014. Mind you, this was approximately 17 years before the outbreak happened. In a scene from the episode titled Lisa's Sacks, Marge asks a sick Bart to read a book titled Curious George and the Ebola Virus. The virus wasn't particularly widespread at that time, but a couple of years later, it really did come into the limelight and was on top of every news agenda. This is when people made the correlation between what The Simpsons had aired and the Ebola outbreaks.
No.
Number 6. U.S. victory over Sweden in curling at the Olympics.
What, they come here on Saturday night to clean the ice? Losers.
In episode 12 of season 21, which was aired in 2010, The Simpsons predicted that the United States would compete against Sweden at curling and would also manage to beat them. The episode was called Boy Meets Curl. In the episode, Marge and Homer Simpson compete in curling at the Vancouver Olympics and end up beating Sweden. You may not know this, but Sweden is a champion as far as curling is concerned. They've won a lot of awards for it, and it's super hard to beat them. But in 2018, exactly 8 years after The Simpsons made their prediction, the U.S. curling team beat Sweden and won gold in curling. The U.S. men's Olympic curling team won a gold medal after defeating Sweden even though they were behind when the tournament started, which is exactly how it played out in the show. Number 5. Voter fraud. In episode 5 of season 20, The Simpsons predicted cases of future election fraud. Yep, that's right. The episode aired in 2008 and showed Homer trying to vote for Barack Obama in the U.S. general election. But a faulty voting machine kept giving his votes to another candidate instead. Exactly 4 years later in Pennsylvania, the same thing happened when voters tried to vote for Barack Obama. You might find this hard to believe, but their votes kept going to his Republican rival Mitt Romney instead. It's safe to say that a lot of people were not happy with the faulty machine, and it had to be removed so that voter fraud wouldn't happen.
Stopping all Americans from voting is for the protection of all Americans.
Number 4. The tobacco plant. In an episode aired in 1999, Homer uses nuclear energy to create a hybrid of a tomato and a tobacco plant. He called it the Tobacco. This was episode 5 of season 11 and created quite a buzz because of the unusual invention. This prediction was more of a self-fulfilling prophecy because a Simpsons fan named Rob Bauer tried to create his own tobacco plant inspired by the show. In 2003, Bauer successfully grafted together a tobacco root and a tomato stem to make the plant. You might not believe this, but the news of his invention spread far and wide and even reached the Simpsons writers, who were very impressed with the invention. They even called Bauer and his family to meet them at their offices and ate the tobacco fruit themselves. Number 3. Disney buys 21st Century Fox. Episode 5 of season 10 in the show was called When You Dish Upon a Star and was originally aired in 1998. This show showed 21st Century Fox being a division of Walt Disney Co. In the episode, Ron Howard and Brian Grazer produce a script that Homer has to pitch. The script is being produced at 20th Century Fox, and a sign outside the company states that it's a division of Walt Disney Co. Later in 2017, Disney actually bid to purchase 21st Century Fox for an estimated $52.4 billion, which also included Fox's film studio 20th Century Fox. Disney also acquired the rights to a variety of other different things. These included bulks of other television production assets and popular entertainment properties like X-Men, Avatar, and even The Simpsons. Number 2. Robot Librarians. In episode 19 of season 6, quite a lot of predictions are made. The episode is called Lisa's Wedding and features all kinds of nuggets of information and future predictions. The episode tells us all about how librarians have been replaced with robots in the Simpsons world. This is also interesting because developed robots stealing human jobs has been a matter of debate since forever. You might not believe this, but more than 20 years after the episode was released, robotics students from the University of Aberystwyth built a prototype for a walking library robot that would assist students like a librarian usually does. Recently, scientists in Singapore have also started testing their own robot librarians. You can't help but wonder if they're getting their ideas from The Simpsons. Number 1. The Higgs boson equation. In a 1998 episode called The Wizard of Evergreen Terrace, Homer Simpson becomes an inventor and is shown standing in front of a complicated equation written on a blackboard. This was the first episode of season 8 on the show and made quite an astounding prediction. According to Simon Singh, the guy who wrote The Simpsons and Their Mathematical Secrets, the equation on Homer's blackboard calculates the mass of the Higgs boson particle, which was first predicted in 1964 by Professor Peter Higgs and 5 other physicists. But it wasn't until 2013 that other scientists discovered proof of the Higgs boson in a $13 billion experiment. Is it possible that the writers of the show knew that an experiment in the future would make this discovery? It seems too accurate to be a mere coincidence. So what do you think? Do you think the writers of this show are actually time travelers? Or do you think this is all just a big coincidence? Let me know in the comments below, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time on the channel.